is Antonia and this is PerryPictures. Today I'm doing a video tutorial on how to use Autodesk Sketchbook. There are a lot of comments and conversations going back and forth on whether or not Sketchbook is a good software to use, especially for beginner artists who are just getting used to the digital sphere when it comes to making art. And I would argue that it is. It's a very intuitive program. It is very versatile with the capabilities that it has, and now it is free for everyone. So I am going to go ahead and put together this tutorial for you, walk you through the very basics to get you started and some of the neat extras that they have available for you to use so that you can do something extraordinary with your artwork. And right now I have this on the default setting that the program comes in when you first open it up, and it is very minimalistic on the interface. I think this is so that you can maximize your canvas area and your drawing space. But there is a way to open up additional windows, which I like to do because I like to have everything available to me at the click of a button. The first of which would be the layer editor. So let's go ahead and open that up. If you see this top toolbar, there is a layers icon. It just looks like 3 sheets of paper. If you click on that, it's going to open your layers window, and I like to keep this up here in the top right corner for me personally, but you can move it around and put it anywhere on the canvas that you would like to keep it. I also recommend adjusting your canvas size. To do that in Sketchbook, you just go to the Image tab and you scroll down to the second option, which is Canvas Size, and click on that. I have mine set to 6,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels. I would recommend that you set yours to anything 3,000 pixels squared and above. That way when you zoom in or export out, it's not going to pixelate on you. To create a new layer on the layer editor, it's really simple. You see this circle, this dotted circle here in the center of the layer. Go ahead and click and hold down on that, and we're going to get this wheel of options. On the right, we can name our layer, and this is really great for keeping things organized when you have a lot of layers happening. Left side, there is a little eyeball, and this is to show or hide. And at the top, there is a sheet of paper with a plus symbol on it. That's how we add layers. So let's go ahead and add a layer. And if we go over here to File on the toolbar, we'll be able to see a drop-down menu that allows us to add image. That's your import button. So go ahead and click Add Image if you would like to add an image. And then that's where I pulled this from. So there's my image, and go ahead and keep that there. We now have an imported image, but if I want to start from scratch, I can do that too. One of the things I also recommend doing whenever you start a new drawing, and this could be in any software, adjust your background color. If you like working on a white sheet of paper, perfectly understandable. For me personally, I like to work on something a little bit darker. That way I'm not, flooding my eyes with bright light and doing eye damage since we are looking at a screen. And to do that, you just go to your layer editor, and the very bottom layer is going to be your background layer. You can click on the colored circle to the right of that layer, and it'll pull up a color wheel so that you are able to choose your color. If you want to have a nice midnight blue background, you can do that. If you would like to have a sunny day blue sky background, you can do that as well. But I tend to want to work on a neutral gray, so that's where I'm going to set that. We're going to go back up here next to the layers icon, and we have our brushes palette there, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. There is an icon at the top of that window, which are your brush properties. There is the basic with the size and the opacity, but I also have advanced editing capabilities with this brush. So I'm able to really get a very custom brush out of this by changing the properties under the Advanced tab in the Brush Properties menu. To get to the rest of the brushes, you click on the icon right next to that, which is the Brush Library, and it will come up with a bunch of different brushes in sort of groups. You have the basic set, which is what's on that first window. Then you have some artistic brushes, which are really nice, and textured brushes, which can be really fun for creating a really nice textured look. These colorless brushes are great for blending, so if you want to throw down some colors and start blending, these are really, really fun to use. We have some ink brushes, which are pretty nice. The Copic Markers. Okay, so this is one of the really, really popular features in Sketchbook Pro that you absolutely should know about. It's criminal if nobody tells you, so I'm going to tell you. They have Copic markers, but more than just the Copic brushes, they have a Copic marker library for color. So to find that, we're going to go ahead and look right here on our toolbar, and there at the very end is an icon for Copic library. So let's click on that, and here we have a color editor that shows us by name, by number, the Copic colors for their markers. These are really, really nice to have, especially if you're transitioning from traditional art to digital art and you're really, really fond of your Copic markers. We have some clouds. If you've watched any of my Art Bite videos, you've probably seen me use this cloud brush on some of my backgrounds. I just go in here and I drop a few of these in, and it makes for a nice pattern to go behind some characters that you've drawn. And we also have some halftones that you can use if you would like to make comic pages and have that classic halftone look. If you are following along with your program and you don't see some of these brushes in your library, that's okay. You can find these and download them from the website directly through the program itself. You just go up here to our window and scroll down to the Sketchbook Extras. It's going to be right under the Copic library. Once you click on that, it's going to open up a window where you have free to download brushes directly from the Autodesk website, and they're updating these all the time, so I would check back regularly to see what other new things that you can get from there. For instance, right here are the cloud brushes that I just showed you. They're available through this website. One of the things that I hear a lot of people talk about having issues with when they open up Sketchbook Pro, aside from pixelation, and that's resolved simply by adjusting your canvas size at the very beginning. The other thing is stabilization. If you're working with a mouse, it can be hard to draw a straight line with a mouse, and even if you have a pen, sometimes you don't have the steadiest hands. Perhaps if you've had too much coffee or something like that, they have a really great stabilization option that I think a lot of people miss because they're not sure what to look for. So if you go to this very top toolbar again and look over here where I have the icon highlighted, it's called Steady Stroke. That is how you can stabilize your artwork, and when you click on that, it brings up a value scale, and this will be an adjustable scale to allow you to determine how strong of a stabilization you want to attribute to this function. I like to keep mine set to 40, and what it does is creates a little bit of a string that you can pull and drag, and that way you can see the mark you're going to make before you make it. And it's nice and smooth, and I really like it, so that's what I tend to leave on at all times. So say I'm using Steady Stroke, and I can see sort of where it's going, but man, I really just can't close that gap correctly. It's not really lining up, it's a little bit tricky. Could do it if I tried a few more times, or I can click on the predictive stroke option, and what this does is once I draw what I want to draw, I let go and it sort of bounces into place for me and helps you with drawing circles. So if I wanted to draw a circle, it snaps it right into place for me. Although there is another way in Sketchbook Pro to make a circle without having to use predictive strokes, and that is by using the ellipse ruler. So if I want to go ahead and make a circle and I want it to be absolutely perfect, it is a very round circle, but I could also do a very long oval. Other rulers that we have available to us include the regular straight edge ruler, so I'm able to use that, and this French curve ruler, which is really cool. If you can see what I'm doing here, I am snapping through a bunch of different French curved shapes. And this is great if you want to make, like, say, a pattern on some furniture, or if you wanted to add a pattern to, say, a robe of some sort, you're able to use this French curve ruler to do that. Before we wrap it up with the rulers, one thing I absolutely have to point out, because this is a huge bonus for using Autodesk Sketchbook, and that is the perspective guides. I am not great with perspective. I'm going to give you guys that disclaimer up front, but we have the ability to use a one-point perspective, which is phenomenal because I can go ahead and draw my horizon line here, and then for my vanishing point, I can go ahead and drag two lines straight to that vanishing point, and now what I've created is a road that vanishes on the horizon. Other ways that you can use the perspective grid is by going to the 2-point perspective option, which is the second one on the drop-down menu, and you are able to adjust these points. So if you don't want to keep the points where they immediately pop up, there are the little circles here, and you can click and drag and adjust them to wherever you would like them to be. So this is kind of just a nice ruler to snap and keep your pen on the perspective grid. So that's super handy. And you can also create these kind of impact lines using the perspective grid. Another perspective that we have in here is 3-point perspective. Where would we be without our 3-point perspective? So we do have that available to us. The points are, again, very adjustable. We also have fisheye perspective ruler, which is so amazing. So if I want to draw like one of those fisheye cityscapes and just get these buildings in here just bending around this wacky fisheye world that we have going on, I absolutely can, because I have a fisheye perspective ruler. It's a tool that someone who's much better at architecture and perspective could use far better than I have, and certainly with a little bit more time than what I'm allowing it here. We also have some other tools that are quite popular. The Symmetry tool, for instance, this is kind of like a ruler, but what it does is it creates symmetry. So let's say we want to draw a really cool wine glass. Yep. Not only do we have the ability to do a vertical symmetry, we also can do horizontal symmetry and create, let's say, a napkin roll. And you can also combine the two. So if you want to have horizontal and vertical symmetry at the same time, perhaps to do some neat corners or just some kind of frame, you absolutely are able to do that or use this to do that. A radial symmetry option, which is very cool because you can create, like, say you want to make some snowflakes. You can do that, some pretty pinwheels, we can make those. One of the other things I didn't really discuss yet that you will see when you first open this program are these two little dials. Now these dials, you can X out of them. If you don't want them, just click this little red button in the top corner and they'll go away. But I like to keep them up there as a quick grab for color. Just tap on that and it'll open up the color wheel so you can change your color at will. This one here, if you click and drag, it will adjust the size of your brush that you are currently on. So I have the paintbrush selected, and if I pull this out, it will get larger, and if I pull it in, it gets smaller. So I'm able to draw this size brush, or if I want to go a lot smaller, I can draw with the brush at this size. So that's just a scaling tool. You can click on the regular color wheel, and that will bring up your color editor. These colors that I have on my color editor are going to look different than the ones you have on yours because this is a palette that I have created over time that I like to use. These are some of my favorite colors to use for my artwork, but if you have a color that you would like to use, you see yourself coming back to it frequently, and you want to have a consistent color palette, if you're doing, say, a storybook or if you're doing a comic book, you can go ahead and grab the color that you want using this square up here, right under the word color editor. Pull that square down to your palette at the very bottom and drop, and that will go ahead and add that to your color palette, and it'll be there for as long as you want it. One of the things I also wanted to go over with you guys, I know this is a really long tutorial, is the layers and blend modes, because there's some really cool blend modes here that are very, very comparable to the Photoshop blend modes that a lot of us see and which we have, and we have some available right here in this program. So I'd like to show this to you, but before I do, I'm going to go ahead and knock out the rest of this toolbar at the very top with some of our basic functions, including the lasso tool. Right up here on the top toolbar, there is a dotted circle with a compass on it, and we're going to go ahead and click on that. That's a quick transform tool. Under it, we have the square selection, which is pretty standard, and we have the lasso. So if I wanted to go ahead and lasso just the small marking, not the large one, because I want to move one from the other, I can do that. I just use the lasso tool, select it. This wheel will pop up giving me the option to pan with it, which is the outer circle, to scale it, which is the inner circle, and to rotate it, which is that middle circle. Some other things to know real quick. This wheel that I just showed you, if you hit your space bar, that hotkey is going to show you a similar wheel. It essentially does the same thing, but Instead of doing that to that layer or to that selection, if you have something selected, it's going to do it to the whole canvas. So I'm able to zoom in and out with this on the canvas. I can pan left, right, up and down. I can also rotate my canvas using the spacebar hotkey. If you don't want to use the hotkey, or if the spacebar for some reason isn't the hotkey on your program, you can do the same thing using this toolbar up here. There is a manual button you can hit, and that is the magnifying glass right next to your Edit Undo button, which is the red arrow, or your Redo button, which is the green arrow. Let's go ahead and talk about some of these blend modes. So I have my layers set to normal, and that's every time you generate a layer, it's going to automatically be set to normal. You select a layer, like layer 16 here, and click the drop-down tab, and I'll be able to set different blend modes per layer. So I'm going to go ahead and assume this is going to be the shading layer. I'm going to use multiply real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so that we can drop some shading on our character here. If it wasn't set to multiply, let's just say it was on normal mode and I used this green pink color, it would look like this. But because it's set to multiply, it looks like this instead. Now the difference is very clear. Multiply to normal, normal looks like this, multiply gives us this. It's a nice shading technique. So I'm able to go in here and add some very, very sloppy shadows because I didn't have my stabilization turned on, but now I do. So let's go ahead and drop in some shadows. And because her pants are already so dark, I'm not going to get much out of that, so let's go shade somewhere else. Example of what this is capable of doing. Another thing you can do with your layers is adjust the opacity. So if I go back over here to my layer window and I go to my multiply layer, I can adjust that by pulling down my opacity. It's the little bar on the right side of that layer. And I'm able to adjust it so that my shadows look a little bit more subtle. I have a favorite blending mode for highlights in here, and that is called Soft Glow. If you watch Ross Draws and he uses Photoshop, he has Color Dodge. This is his big finale in most of his videos where he adds the Color Dodge layer. And Sketchbook does something very similar, but it is called Soft Glow. So if I go into Soft Glow and I go ahead and use this layer, drag that across here, and I'm going to go ahead and get this amazing pop of color using this blend mode. So you can go in here and really brighten up her tank, add some light source here. That's a little bit too yellow, but I'm just demoing for you guys. This is just a demo. You kind of get the idea here, right? I'm not able to color things in quickly when we don't have a fill bucket tool. So one way to do this is to go up here to your toolbar, and there, right next to the text editor, which you can use and has every font that is available on the computer is automatically imported into here. There is a fill bucket tool, and I can go ahead and click fill with whatever color I have, but it's going to fill in that entire layer. I could put that layer behind my character or click this button here, which shows us a little, looks like a paint drop on top of the layer. And when you click it, you get multiple layers. So that way it's sampling and it's using everything that's on all the layers as a barrier. So now when I drop in some color, it puts that color around the character, creates a nice silhouette. If I wanted that to be a silhouette, I could just do that. Some other things that we can do with this fill bucket tool is a gradient. So if I wanted to go from here to here and create a nice gradient, I can do that as well. If I wanted to do the radial fill, and by the way, to change the colors on these, say I liked that green, I didn't want it to be black and white, I wanted it to be a green gradient, I can go ahead and double click on those circles and I can change those colors. And this goes for all the different fill bucket tools. I'm going to hide my character for a moment. So here we have my silhouette of my character. And what if I wanted to shrink that? Well, I could do that. I could make it smaller, taller, squatter, just by using the transform tool. But there are other ways to transform your character using this, so you can distort as well. And what this allows you to do, the center one, I can drag this up to make her legs look taller or longer, or I can go to the corners and maybe I want her to look like she's leaning more. Maybe I pull these sides both in and now it looks like she's on a 3D plane. So there's a lot of versatility with these transform tools, particularly the sort tool if you want to take a drawing that you've already laid down and sort of stretch it in a way that will make it look more three-dimensional. And one more thing, very briefly going over the wheel down in the bottom left corner, because this also toggles your menus for you. So if we go down here and we click on this hammer and hold that down, we're able to fit to view, use our rulers, our ellipses, our layers. We have our brush editor here. We show you the standard array of brushes, so if you want to open the whole brush library, you just go to the brush palette at the very bottom of that wheel. We also have our color wheel here as well, and arrow icon, which will show you your maneuverability tools. And that's kind of all I have for this tutorial. If there's something that I missed, or if you have any questions about the capabilities within Sketchbook that maybe I didn't cover in this video, go ahead and ask them down below. I've been using this software for, oh my goodness, like since 2011, I think. So I might be able to help you out. So just ask them and I will do my best to give you the answers. Thank you for joining me on this video. I hope you got a lot out of it and I will see you next time. Bye!